Hello and welcome to this video. In this video I will try to give you all the information I would have wanted to know before I hiked the Tour de Mont Blanc in France, Switzerland and Italy. First, what is the Tour de Mont Blanc? The Tour de Mont Blanc is a 170 km long hike through France, Switzerland and Italy. On this hike you walk around the Mont Blanc Massif, which is the highest mountain of Western Europe. It's 170 km long, with around 12,000 meters of elevation gain. The record time someone completed the whole Tour de Mont Blanc is 19 hours, but most people take around 12 to 14 days to complete the whole circuit. The whole hike is divided in 11 stages and you go to 3 different countries. I hiked the Tour de Mont Blanc back in September of 2021 and I made 4 separate videos about it. I still noticed people had quite a lot of questions, so that's why I decided to make this video. I'll try to answer all your questions you might have about the Tour de Mont Blanc. This will be quite a long summary of everything you want to know before hiking the Tour de Mont Blanc. That's why I made timestamps so you can skip forward. I also made multiple videos about the Tour de Mont Blanc, but also multiple hiking guide videos. So if you're interested in that, please check out my channel. If you find this video helpful, please consider giving it a like and subscribing, because that would really help my channel. First, a big summary about the Tour de Mont Blanc. I will later go into details about where to start and which alternative stage you could take, but first, the hike. The official starting point is in Les Houches, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. On this hike there will be multiple possible routes. In this summary I will just follow the route I took. From Les Houches you start climbing straight away. It's quite a big climb to start with and you hike all the way until almost 1700 meters. From where I pitched my tent for the first night, but most people hike on if you start a bit earlier. You hike all the way to 1700 meters and start descending again until you cross this river and climb all the way to the Col de Tricot, your first high point at 2100 meters. You descend again into this little village where I drank some water at exactly this place before you start climbing again. After the climb follows a big descent and you reach your first next town, Les Contamines, at 1100 meters. A lot of people decide to camp or sleep here. I only had some lunch and walked further. After Les Contamines you start climbing again, and this is where I decided to make a little extra turn and sleep at Lac Jovet, 2200 meters. But the route continues all the way around this higher place. So you climb to the higher place, go around the mountain, and you start making your way in the direction of Italy. You have some higher climbs again. This is where you cross the border to Italy. You follow the valley until after another big climb you reach the bigger town of Courmayeur. Quite a lot of people start here as well if you're coming from the Italian side. After Courmayeur there will be a big climb again, leading you back to 2200 meters, and you follow this valley on a beautiful walk. Follow the valley all the way until you reach Switzerland. Head down all the way to Le Fouilly at 1600 meters and you continue on a gentle slope downwards to Champex-Lac. From Champex-Lac there's another big climb until you reach Putti or Trient, from where probably the next day you will climb your way up to France. You visit the valley of Chamonix on the mountains and you can either end at Chamonix or continue your way all the way following Le Brevent to Les Houches. So it's 170 kilometers, almost 12,000 meters of altitude gain, and most people do it in the 11 stages if they don't take a rest day. But of course it can be done faster because the record is 19 hours. But that's for the Ultra Tour de Mont Blanc. In short, you start in Les Houches, hike all the way up and down until you reach Italy, climb all the way to the border with Switzerland, around the whole Massif to Trient, big climb until you reach France again. So as you could tell, there's a lot of up and down on the Tour de Mont Blanc. You won't go that high. I think the highest variant is around 2700 meters. If you take a look at this altitude map, there's a lot of up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So be prepared to hike a lot of mountains and a lot of steep descents as well. This is a map of all the stages. You start in Les Houches, from where you hike to Les Contamines, followed by Les Chapeaux, Refugio Les Elisabetta, Courmayeur, Refugio Bonatti, La Fouli, Champé, Col de la Focas, and back to Trellechamp, Refugio La Flerege, and back to the start. As you can see on this map, you see the red line, the official Tour de Mont Blanc route. But they made multiple variants. Variants are basically the harder version of the same part. Most of the times they're a little bit less crowded and have more spectacular views because they go a little bit higher. I myself did all the variants I could possibly do except for the last one because of bad weather, and I can only recommend it. If you're feeling fit enough, really go for the alternative stages. Less people, better views, and a nice physical challenge. But I won't go into all the alternative stages or the stages, you can just find them out yourself. So there are 11 stages and 6 variants you can choose to do if you're looking for a little bit more of a challenge or the better views. But the fun part about the variants is you can just decide which variant you want to take every day. If you're feeling great, go for the variant. If you think this variant is not for me or not worth it, just do the normal route. How to get to this hike? Well, first we have to decide where to start. You basically have 3 big options, but you can start anywhere along the hike. Most people start in Les Houches or in Chamonix, because this is on the north side and the official starting point. It's quite easy to reach as well, but I will go into more detail about it later. If you're coming from the south side, it might be better to start at Courmayeur, a big Italian town. And if you're coming from the Swiss side, you might be able to start at Trient, which is a little bit more in the north. But basically, you can start at any town along the Tour de Mont Blanc track. And then, counterclockwise or clockwise. Officially, the hike is a clockwise hike. So most people are doing it counterclockwise because the climbs are a little bit more gentle. This also means when you're walking, most people are walking in the same direction and you will just see the same people every day, which I thought was very nice. I saw multiple people multiple days in a row. If you're doing the clockwise direction, there will be a little bit less people doing so. But the fun part is, if you're doing the stages, you will just see people in the beginning and in the end of the day, and in between you can have quite some moments where there's less people. I did counterclockwise and I really enjoyed it because the climbs were nicer and a little bit more gentle, and I saw a lot of people multiple different days on the hike. Okay, but how to reach this hike? If you're starting from Chamonix or Les Houches, it's quite easy. You either fly into Genève and you take a bus for around 10 to 20 euros, which brings you all the way into Chamonix. From Chamonix you can take a free shuttle to Les Houches, which is the official starting point of the trek. You can also start in Chamonix because it's already on the route. You can also fly into Lyon and take a train or a bus to Chamonix as well. If you're coming from overseas, you can also fly into Paris, and from Paris it's easy to reach Lyon or Genève. This brings you closer to the Mont Blanc Massif. If you're coming from Italy, it might be wiser to take a train to Courmayeur. And if you're coming from the east side of Switzerland, Trient might be the easiest place to reach. Switzerland has a really nice train network, so you can come quite close to the Tour de Mont Blanc by train in Switzerland. But most people fly into Genève and take a Flixbus to Chamonix, and from there take a free shuttle to Les Houches and start the Tour de Mont Blanc. But how and where to sleep during the Tour de Mont Blanc? You can either book all your refugios in advance, which is quite a bit more expensive than camping, of course, and that way you're stuck to a tight schedule hiking the Tour de Mont Blanc. I preferred camping, but there are quite some rules you have to consider. Camping in France is easy, because you are allowed to bivouac almost everywhere. Only near Lac Le Blanc, which is close to Chamonix, there's an area where it's forbidden. But other than that, almost everywhere you can just arrive, pitch your tent at sunset, sleep for the night, leave no trace, and when the sun rises you pick your tent up and start walking again. So the French part is no problem. As you can see, I did my first wild camping a little bit above Les Houches straight away, which is a very nice night. And on the second night I made a little detour towards here, and that's where I camped or bivouacked as well, completely legal. But then Italy and Switzerland are a little bit more difficult, because if you are following the rules, you have to sleep above the tree line or above 2500 meters of altitude in order to be a legal bivouac. So what I did was, my first night in Italy, I stayed in a Refugio because I wanted to experience this part of hiking as well, but I didn't like it that much. I thought down the road there would be a campsite, so I think 2 kilometers further than Refugio Elisabetta there will be a campsite, but I'm not completely sure about it because I didn't sleep there. Then, near Courmayeur, after a big climb out of Courmayeur, that's where I stealth camped. What you can do is hike a little bit further, a little bit higher, and do the variant of the Mont de la Saxe, which is above the tree line, and that way you can bivouac there legally. So that way you have a nice legal campsite here. In Switzerland, almost the same rules apply as in Italy. That's why I stayed at a campsite a little bit before La Fouli, and near the end there's a legal Swiss bivouac place. It's a field owned by, I think, a farmer. Sometimes he came to collect like €2, but when I was there it was a free place to sleep. So, camping is doable. There are campsites along the trail. In France you can just bivouac almost everywhere. In Italy and Switzerland you have to find places above 2,500 meters or above the tree line. And it gives you a nice flexible approach of the whole hike. You can just walk until you're satisfied for today, pitch your tent and sleep there. Of course, it's very important to leave no trace. I won't go into further details about the Refugios, because I don't have experience with booking those. I did inform the Refugio sometimes about sleeping there for one night. The Refugio Elisabetta, I just showed up and they had a bed for me, but other than that, I asked for some prices and they were really expensive, especially in comparison to sleeping for free. So, in summary, how to camp. France, go ahead, except for some parts. Italy and Swiss, above the tree line or above 2,500 meters. There are quite a lot of places where you can do this. And there are also quite a lot of places where you can just stay at a campsite or a legal bivouac place. Of course, I will link my map with the exact location of where I spend my nights in the description down below. So for me, camping was a nice way to really keep my hike very cheap, very flexible and very relaxed. Food and water. You will pass through villages almost every day. This also means that you can stock up on your food and on your water and drinks easily during the hike. Just make sure that before you leave a town you know how far you have to go before you reach the next town or next resupply point. I also brought a life straw with me, a water filter device, which was really convenient. So I never walked with more than 2 liters of water because I could always just restock at the nearest river. I went for cold soaking, so I just ate my freeze-dried meals with some water, let it soak for a while and then ate it. But there are multiple options to enjoy the nice cuisine of Italy, France and Switzerland, of course. You can either eat at the Refugios or like Courmayeur, Contamine, Lejoux, Chamonix, the other towns you will pass. So I did some supermarket shopping, had food at Refugio once and drank the water from the streams. Do you need a guide or self-guided, or can you do it solo? I did the hike solo and I met quite a lot of people who were hiking solo. The route itself is really easy to follow if you have some GPS device like L-Trails or GPX files. There are a lot of signs saying which route you have to take, so for navigation you won't need the guide. If you're not experienced with hiking at all and you don't feel comfortable with hiking for 2 weeks with no guide, of course you can take a guide. It's not technical, there are no dangerous parts and there's not really a wilderness you have to conquer. If you want to stay at refuges or don't carry your own stuff, maybe you can organize this with a trekking company. They can either book your refugios for you or carry your stuff from the refugio to the next refugio, so you only have to hike with a day pack. This is what they offer, and I think in the so-called self-guided tours. I would recommend, if you have the flexibility and if you are a little bit experienced, just go there, either book your own refugios or completely choose your own pace by bringing a tent with you. And then, which month should you go? Well, there's basically only one season you can hike this hike, and that is during the summer, unless you're really experienced with hiking on snow, of course. May. The first month people hike the Tour de Mont Blanc is May, but you have to be experienced with hiking in the snow and navigating more difficult trails. There's almost no one hiking the Tour de Mont Blanc then. Also, quite a lot of the refugios are closed. June. A little bit more people start hiking in June, so you have a little bit less snow, getting a little bit better weather, more refugios are opening up, but still not that many people. So if you're an experienced hiker and you're not afraid of the snow, this might be a nice time to start your hike. July and August have very good weather most of the time. Of course, it's the mountains, it can always start storming or raining. More or less, these are the safest months to go weather-wise. All the refugios are open, but because it's a very popular trail, it will be very crowded as well. And then the last option would be September. You have colder nights, but still very beautiful weather. All the refugios are still open and a lot less people on the trail. This is the month I went and I really liked it because it's a very popular trek. It wasn't too crowded for me. Some people also hike in October, but then some refugios are already closing up and there's less people. Also the nights will be colder and you can expect the first snow to be falling again. So this month will be quite a lot more riskful. And then gear. What to bring? Well, I already made a big video about which gear I brought and why I did it, so I would suggest you to watch this full video if you're interested in gear. One thing I will talk about are the shoes. You see quite a lot of people walking with big bulky mountain shoes. In my opinion, if you're a little bit trained, you don't need those shoes. I did it on trail runners. The train is not that technical, so most people wouldn't need the ankle support. I would suggest, if it's possible for you, take the trail runners with a lot of grip. Also, they don't have to be waterproof if you're not walking in the snow. I think there are 0 river crossings where you will get wet feet. Then, is this hike for you? Well, it's a very beautiful hike. One of my favorite hikes of Europe for sure. The views are spectacular and you're just passing through so many beautiful areas. But the hike has a lot of up and down on steep paths. It's not scary steep, but it's just a lot of climbing. So if you have knee or Achilles problems, this hike might not be for you. Also, if you're really looking for a wilderness experience, the Tour de Mont Blanc is just not the hike. You're not going into real wilderness, you will pass a lot of people and quite a lot of villages, which can also be a positive side because it's easier to resupply, it's less dangerous and less riskful. I also enjoyed the meeting people every day. So this hike is very beautiful but quite tough with the climbing and descending all the time. So if you're fit enough, I would really recommend you to do this hike because it's beautiful, but you have to be on a certain level of fitness. How many days should you calculate to do this hike? Well, it ranges anywhere between 19 hours and 14 days. There are 11 stages, 3 rest days, and you have 14 days. I did it in 6.5 days, quite a lot of people do it in 8 or 11 days. And this totally depends on you. Do you want to have long hiking days? You can maybe do it in 7 days. Do you want to have easier days? Maybe go for the 11 stages with 2 resting days if that's what you enjoy. If you want to make some sort of planning for yourself, don't only look at the distance, really look at the elevation gain for every day, because that's what makes the hike tough. Do you need permits for this hike? No, you don't need any permits for this hike. You can just show up and start hiking. Which currency do they use? Well, Switzerland is the only one which doesn't use the euro. But on the Tour de Mont Blanc, you can still pay in euros, also in Switzerland. So no need to bring Swiss francs. Also, at most places you can just pay with your card. So no need to bring a lot of cash with you as well. The conclusion, the Tour de Mont Blanc. A 170 kilometer hike through France, Switzerland and Italy, leading you across one of the most beautiful places of Europe. If you are camping this hike, it's very cheap, very beautiful and you will meet a lot of wonderful people. Also, it's very safe, but it's a tough hike. You have a lot of climbing up and down all the way. It's doable on trail running shoes and you won't need a guide. For me, being from Europe, I just left on Friday evening, started at Saturday, hiked for a week, arrived back at Sunday at my home and only had to take 1 week of work to complete this whole hike. If this video was helpful for you, or if you have any questions, subscribe and let me know down below and I'll try to answer as soon as possible.